The Breaking 2 project was well known in the running world. While the record had to wait for a few more years to happen, the sheer commitment of the runners to endure the process was commendable. And later, Kipchoge went on to make history at Vienna. While this is still not an official record, it is a historic milestone for human endurance. Welcome to the 45th episode of the World of Running. I'm your host, Aditi Pandya. What does it take for a runner to go on to break records every other weekend? Be it Ingebrigtsen's breaking the indoor mile in 3 minutes and 45 seconds, or Jacob Kiplimo's half marathon world record in 56 minutes and 42 seconds. Before we dive deep into today's episode, I have a quick reminder. Please rate our podcast on your preferred platform and share it with fellow runners. For more tips, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel Geeks on Feet and sign up to our newsletter. Do check out our online training program at RunStrong. We attribute record-breaking performances to factors like super shoes, improved training methods, better nutrition, or even sodium bicarb before races. But one of the differentiating factors in an athlete is their mindset. How can one develop a mindset is what we are exploring in the next 45 minutes to an hour. Our guest for today is Andrew Snow. Andrew is a performance and mindset coach for distance runners. He is the founder of Run Elite training program and the author of the book Run Elite. He holds a degree in exercise physiology and a master's degree in biomechanics. With 27 years of competitive running experience, Andrew has achieved a conference title on the track, multiple finishes in the Boston Marathon, and in 2013, he finally hung up his shoes to pursue trail ultra running, where he has won many races and has completed several races over 100 miles, including the iconic Tahoe 200-mile endurance run. Welcome, Andrew, to today's podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Thank you. So, Andrew, as I was talking to you earlier, I've read your book, and psychology is one of my favorite subjects. I studied it, and mindset is a topic which intrigued me a lot. And let me start by asking you that, in your book, you mentioned Eliud Kipchoge, who decided to break the marathon world record and was fully committed to the process. Now, what does it take to build that kind of certainty in our mind, and how does a runner execute it over a period of time?
So Kipchoge, I'm not sure when he did the Breaking 2 project, he was already the world record holder. So he already knows that he's in contention to do this. Now, I don't know what the process was for him setting his first world record. We can look at his training, but his mindset, he didn't talk about as much leading into that. He talked about his mindset before the Olympics, and he talked a lot about his mindset for the Breaking 2 project because there was a lot of media around it, so there were a lot of interviews. He did have certainty that he could do it, but let's not forget that a couple years before, I think it was 2 years before, he tried to do it, and he did it at a different event that Nike put on, and it was called Nike Breaking 2, whatever it was, and he missed it. He missed it by like 20-something seconds. Very close. So was he certain he could do it then or not? This is a really interesting place to take off from, because oftentimes if you decide that you want to do something and then you don't do it, it could just mean that you measured early. It doesn't mean that you're not going to do it. So Kipchoge decided he's going to break 2 hours, and he did this years before. Then he tried to do it, and he missed, but it didn't matter because he decided he's going to do it. All that happened was that they measured early, before either his fitness was there or before the technology or the layout or the conditions of the course were there. It didn't matter. He still believed he could do it. So a couple years later, they did it at the Ineos project, and he did it there. And you know what? If something happened at Ineos where he didn't do it and he ran 2 hours, 1 second, I still don't think that he would believe that he can't do it. It's just, oh, I'm closer. We just measured early. Let's do it again in another year or so. So his certainty came from simply making a decision. And we'll come back to this probably a couple of times, that it is already done. It's not a decision of I'm going to do it. It's a decision that it's already done and I just need to execute on the formality of running this race. When it's already done in your mind, in your soul, then that's all that you need to do. So whatever it is you want to do, it could be with your running, it could be with your finances or your relationships or any area of your life, but nothing really is going to change unless you decide that you're going to do it. If you want to cut the grass in your yard, you can hope to do it, you can plan to do it, but nothing happens until you decide you're going to do it. And a real decision, like Kipchoge made, is measured by the fact that we've taken a new action. Without some kind of new action, and this could be a new way we think, a new way we train, a new logistic, without a new action, we haven't truly decided. So that's really all it was, is that he decided he's going to do it. Doesn't matter what the outcome of the races are, he decided. And eventually it's inevitable that he's going to do it, so he keeps on moving towards it.
Great. So, this exact word that you decide to do it and then you move forward is like manifesting, right? And during the Olympics, I heard Gabby Thomas saying that she ran the 200 meters so many times in her head, and she was already number one. She just had to execute it, right? And she was committed to it, right? So I had heard one of her interviews post the race. Now, while you say this, but a lot of our listeners, Andrew, are juggling between a 9 to 5 job, right? And how can they develop this kind of commitment and certainty that they can train? And as you mentioned, that this can be applied to any aspect of our life, right? So,
Yep.
is there a framework of balancing these these demanding commitments on the track, off the track?
Sure. It comes down to how you think about it. So even the term, in the question that you're asking me, you're saying that some people are juggling a 9 to 5. So what? But, I mean, can an elite runner still work a 9 to 5? You know, one of the greatest male ultra runners, what's his name? Harvey Lewis. Harvey Lewis is a full-time school teacher. Courtney Dauwalter, the greatest ultra runner of all time, essentially, man or woman. She's just the greatest. Until recently, she was a full-time teacher as well. They have 9 to 5s, but they have time to not only train to become number one in the world, they have time to drop some huge mileage. Ultra runners often are running 100, 200, 300 miles a week, and they have the time. So having a 9 to 5 doesn't really matter. You're not going to be training 16 hours a day anyway, so we have other time. But the idea of juggling tells us that juggling's kind of out of control. I mean, maybe there's an art to it and it is controlled, but when we're juggling, when we say that we're juggling a lot of things in our life, it kind of sounds like I'm picking something up and then putting it down and picking something, and there's just a lot of things, a lot of balls up in the air. And if we believe that that's what our life is, and I have to juggle, anybody who says to you, I am juggling, you know that there's a laundry list of things coming. My kids, my work, my fitness, cleaning the house, whatever. And that's all true. Don't we all have that? Kipchoge has that too. He has to do the dishes, tie his shoes, do the laundry, go to sleep. And you can make this list infinitely long. But if you focus on all the things you're juggling, you'll surely find that giant laundry list. It doesn't mean that laundry list is true. It just means you're focusing on too long of a list. You can also focus on the simplicity of it. All I need to do is do my job, run, take care of my kids. I have enough time for that. Now, if you resist that and think, yeah, easy for you to say because I have this list, you can always argue for the giant list of things you have to do. We all have that. But if you don't, you're focusing on the things that could get in your way. So by not focusing on all the things that could get in your way, we get out of our own way. And if I may, there's an example of this that I've heard. One of my mentors, Tony Robbins, he talks about this. A scenario. Someone who goes to the gym to work out. Now, there's the person who doesn't really want to go to the gym. What would they say? They would say, well, it's kind of a pain in the butt, isn't it? You got to get in the car and you have to drive all the way there. You have to pack up your clothes and you can never find a good parking spot. So you have to park and then walk in. And then the person at the desk, they not only swipe your card, they ask you if you want personal training and to upgrade to this. And then you have to walk to the locker room and you have to find a locker because they're all taken and take your clothes off that you just put on and put on your workout clothes. And then you have to lock it and you have to buy a special lock for this. And then you have to go out and figure out what the machine is and how the treadmill works. Oh, and then you got to turn it on. You got to warm up, and then you got to sweat, and then you got to turn it off, and you got to wipe it down, and then you got to shower and put the clothes back on that you just took off, and then get back in your car and then drive home. It sounds exhausting. But
It does.
but for Kipchoge, he'd be like, I went to the gym and I did my run on the treadmill today. He did all those things too, but he's not focused on them, so it doesn't feel like this giant thing he has to juggle. It's just his run. So it depends on where you put your focus.
So this is interesting, right? And in one of our conversations during a run, we were discussing, or maybe I think end of the year we were discussing this, that we are improving every weekend. We are breaking records every weekend, and then there are some of us who have putting limits in our own head, right? Like whatever you said right now about going to the gym, and there was a laundry list of right from parking the car to getting onto the treadmill is a laundry list, which is a limiting thought in my head. As compared to I went to the gym, I did my exercise, I came back home, and that was beautiful,
Simple.
right? I want to understand that limiting thought. How are we helping our folks to eliminate, right? Like having these elephants in our head needs to be eliminated and be aligned.
Okay. Eliminated and aligned are polar opposite things. If we think we need to eliminate something, not necessarily. It could be a positive thing to eliminate something, but there's a lot of things to eliminate, and we have to take action to eliminate all these things. We can just do a power skip over all of that and enjoy the process. Now, if you don't enjoy the process, why are you doing it? The answer for that would normally be because you think you need to. I need to lose weight. I need to keep up with this person, this training partner, whatever it is. And needing to do something versus doing something out of joy, the action might look the same, going to the gym and doing the workout. But if you need to do it, it has a weight on you that is kind of unsustainable, at least for a long time. But if you take joy in what you're doing, it's a pleasure to do it. And so we get caught up a lot of times with the runners who I coach. One of our first conversations is on not just like, why are you doing this? It's kind of cheap to just ask that, but like, really, why are you doing this? And we want to take it a couple levels deeper. So if you want to get faster over a marathon, if you want to break a certain time, well, why do you want that? And you may come up with, it's going to be different for everybody, but it might be to get my Boston qualifier. Okay, why do you want your Boston qualifier? Isn't just running faster and running a PR good enough? Well, I guess so, but I want the Boston qualifier. Why? And then they have to go back in their mind and say, because I remember, they'll tell you some story, right? I remember when I was a kid, my friend Boston qualified, and I always knew that I was better than them. So it's about you wanting to rise up to your potential that you thought you haven't met. Yeah. So we can like dig down more and more and more until we get it actually like why you're doing this. And always the reason why you're doing anything is not because of the result that you want. The reason we do anything with our running or any area of our life is because we think when we get the result, we'll feel a certain way. And if we didn't think that getting that result would give us that feeling, we wouldn't do it. So it's really the feeling you want, not the result. We just think that we need to witness the result in order to unlock that permission in ourselves to flip that switch and give ourselves that feeling. But what a high performer does in athletics or anything else is you allow yourself to feel that feeling before the manifestation of it. And that's what Kipchoge did. He knew that he was already successful. He knew he was already fulfilled. It didn't matter if he hit the time or not. Now, he's going to go for the time as well because that brings out the best in him, and that's the life he wants to live. But when Kipchoge missed breaking 2 hours the first time, I definitely don't think he was distraught over it and went home and cried and complained. It was no big deal, right? Because getting the time wasn't the result. He said in the Breaking 2 project that the result was to show that no human is limited. So he's doing this for more than just himself. He's doing it for the world, to show no human is limited. What a message that is. And so I got goosebumps as I said that there, because that's something that's bigger than him. That's something that's meaningful, and it's something that drives his emotion, regardless of the time on the clock. And that's why he was able to do it. I'm not saying his training didn't matter, but if you listen to Kipchoge himself, he says, my training is the same, my coaching is the same, nutrition is the same. So what's different, Kipchoge? He says, this time the thinking's different. He said, now the thinking is different. Direct quote from him. That's the only thing that changed between a 2:01:44, whatever it was, and a sub 2. Now the thinking's different. That's it.
Yeah, and I am so I agree with you, right? And having said that, I want to share something that between last cycle of my marathon and this cycle of my marathon, nothing much changed, except that I did not fret any of my workouts, right? My workouts and I were aligned, so I knew that when I'm running, I'm going to achieve those paces. And before I ran my marathon, um, I knew I'm there. Like I'm aligned to my paces. I'm going to run those paces, right? Now, having said this, I also know my friends and folks we run with are sometimes they are stuck, right? They are stuck on a pace, or they don't see they're putting in the miles, right? So they're putting in everything, but they don't see the needle moving. And in our case, we don't see our paces drop, right? So what is that difference between getting PBs and then you say I'm going to make it like my world record, and my world record is my definition of what I want, right? So
Sure.
what is that switch?
It's a switch on what you're focusing on. If we think that we're a runner and we're running a race, so the only metric that matters is that time on the clock. And if I don't see that time on the clock coming down, then I'm not progressing. And that's complete bull. Because let's list the ways, shall we, of ways that you can progress that have nothing to do with the time on the clock. And I'll give you a story that proves this after I say this. But if you want to get better every weekend or better every race, you're kind of screwed. Because you have to be doing peak training all the time in order to get better. You run a PR, now you have another marathon a month or two later. What are you going to do during that month or two? You better keep hammering on marathon pace and long runs and tough workouts if you stand a chance. And then you have another one a month later, 6 months later, whatever it is. And it's just this cycle of I have to train at my peak all the time. Now that's a mistake because you can't hold hard training in a peak all the time. You will, if you keep trying to do that, one of three things will happen. You'll either plateau, which a lot of runners have experienced. They just, like you say, they don't get better, they don't get faster, they plateau, even though they put more work in. Or you burn out. I can't do it, this sucks, I'm just tired all the time. And then they have like a big dip in a season, or they stop running even. Or you get injured. You keep trying to pile on more. It didn't work, let's pile on more, you get injured. So injury, burnout, and plateau are inevitable if you keep doing that. So instead, we want to look at some metrics that have nothing to do with the time on the clock. Such as you could take a season and you could focus on foundational training. You could run more volume than you've ever run before, even if it's at a slower pace. Now that is progress. If you're used to running 50 miles a week and now you've spent a year running 75 miles a week, regardless of what your marathon time is, that is progress because you're building a bigger foundation. You could also go back and do more raw speed work. I talk in the book about strides and hill sprints. How many of you are actually doing 8-second all-out hill sprints? Probably next to zero. You could add those into your training. There's a way to do that. You can read about that in base training of the book. But you can add that in. Now that's progress, even if everything stayed the same. But I've added in more of this raw development. Okay? You could also be more consistent. Instead of running 3 days per week, you could run 5 days per week, even if the mileage is the same. That is a level up as well. You could also enjoy your running even more. If you're sick of running on the road, you could get on the trail, or sometimes run with a friend. Or you could run up and down hills. All the metrics stay the same, but you change something that is progress. And the biggest one is you can change how you feel about it. If you can find a way to enjoy your running more, like I said, maybe get it into the mountains or the trail, or take the pressure off of yourself and not race so that you enjoy your training more, so that you do it more long term. It contributes to your life even more. Now, the dirty little secret is that is how you get better, but you're not doing it so you get better. You're doing it so you enjoy more. And you can get progress in different areas other than just the time on the clock. But I'll prove it to you that you don't need to see the time on the clock getting better in order to actually set a PR. I run trail ultras only now, but I used to run on the road, marathons, half marathons. And I would normally do one marathon per year. And a month or two before that, I would run a half marathon. And I did this like clockwork for like half a decade. And every year I ran a PR in the half marathon, a month later, a PR in the marathon. And it was just getting better year over year. But I really wanted to break 3 hours and I hadn't done it. So there was a year that I ran my first Boston in 2014. And I ran a half marathon leading up to that race. And I ran a PR. I ran a 121, which at the time, for me, that was very good. Then I went to Boston, and it was ideal conditions. Sunny day, cool temperatures, no wind, and I ran a 3 hour, 58 second. So I missed the 3 hour barrier. Now, the next year I came back, I changed my training. I actually ran less miles per week, but more specificity for the marathon. So I ran that half marathon tune-up again, the same race, and I ran a 124. So you would think I got worse. I went from a 121 to a 124. But my marathon was a 258. And it was a 258 with a headwind and freezing rain. So, I mean, it definitely counted. You know, it wasn't like weather, it wasn't a tailwind or something. So how did I get better in the marathon? Even though I got slower in the half marathon, I increased my specificity of the marathon. Even though my mileage went down slightly, it went from like 70 to 65 at the time. So if I were measuring by the tune-up race, the half marathon, I would have second guessed and I would have thought, oh, there's no way I'll break 3. I'll be slower in the marathon this year. But I was faster because I was measuring other things other than just that time on the clock.
Got it. So I have the similar incident for this marathon, right? So last year I ran a 3:37 full marathon, and this year I ran a 3:29. But at the 10K mark, I was slower this year than last year.
Good.
Right, by maybe 15 seconds, but I was definitely slower. And because I'm telling you, that means I was remembering it while I was running, right? And while I was running, I also know the conditions last year versus this year. This year was definitely a stronger finish, but I did not get worked up with that 15 seconds extra in the first 10K, right? Because I already knew this time that I'm going to finish in this time, right? There are no questions asked. I was not second doubting myself. And the same, what you're trying to say is not to second doubt, right? Like if I have to just put it into simpler words, right? And I actually was going to come to my next question was that we think that you keep pushing harder, right? Like in your previous conversation, you said you reduced your miles by a few miles. You did reduce. Your half marathon was less. So it's not about pushing harder, right, for a breakthrough performance, but it is about going beyond your physical training with mental and emotional preparation. Now, I want to bring in the emotional and the mental aspect that you brought in while you were training for this, and you generally bring in for your mentees.
Sure. It changed over the years. The story that I just told you, I hadn't yet really come to a full understanding in my life of what mindset meant at the time. But looking back at it, I didn't have to know. I had to know just how I felt. And back then, what I felt was faith and confidence. I had a new approach to my training. I was going to train smarter than I had in the past. And I added in, I won't bring you through the whole training cycle, but I did things different in that training cycle than I did before. And I had confidence that those differences were going to make a big difference in my marathon. So the emotions that I was experiencing were confidence. Confidence, not just like blind confidence. It was confidence in my process. And it was faith that this is inevitable. I'm definitely breaking 3 hours. I'm going beyond that. Breaking 3 hours is just like the next thing that I want. It was faith that it's already done. Now, I believed when I missed breaking 3 hours a number of times, I ran a 3:01, I ran a 3 hour flat. I'd come pretty close. And it was just evidence for me that I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. This is inevitable. I need more time. So faith is really a big one. And this is the way that I execute in my training now. So I have, in 3 weeks, I'm running a 309-mile race in the mountains. Now that's quite a long way to go. I've never run that far. I've run 205, which is also quite a long way to go. This is significantly more. This is multiple days. It's going to be at least 5 days, if not 6 or 7 days of continuous running. That's intimidating. And there's no reason to believe that my body can do it I was pretty spent after 200. I've been very spent after 100 or 50 or a marathon or even a 5K. But I know that this is my belief. I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but you might consider listening very carefully to what I'm going to tell you right here and adopting it for yourself. You might consider it. And that is the belief that everything is always working out for you. Could it be any other way? You're still here. You've probably gone through, anybody listening to this has probably gone through heartbreak, financial hardship, injuries, all sorts of stuff, and you're still here. So everything is always working out for you. You can probably look back on something that was really hard in your life, that in the moment you would have done anything to get out of. But as long as enough time has passed that you're kind of out of it, you can probably look back on that and even be grateful that it happened because of something you learned or something you changed or something you no longer do, and your life is better because of it. So thank God that thing happened because it brought you here. So if that's happened again and again, if you can think back to every hardship you've ever had and be grateful that it happened because it brought you here, the skill is in what if you're experiencing a hardship now? Even in your running, what if you get sick or blow up or miss your time? Then can you have faith that everything is always working out for you? And in the future, you're going to look back at that, and as long as you learn something, so maybe you blew up in the marathon, maybe you were more fit, but you went out too fast, and so you blew up. We saw this with Jakob Ingebrigtsen at the last Olympics. Now, he's a fantastic runner. He could kick my butt. He could kick basically everybody's butt. But the truth is, in the race that mattered to him most, now he ran the 5K. I think he medaled. I think he won, didn't he, the 5K? I don't remember. But he did a great job. I think he won. But he didn't win in the 1500. In the 1500, that's his event. He didn't even medal. Now, being the outstanding runner that he is, how is it possible? And he's world record holder, at least indoors. How is it possible that he didn't win? He's the best. Well, I don't know. I'm not him, but I do know that he went out a bit fast. And I know that Cole Hawker hung on their shoulders and then kicked at the end. So did Ingebrigtsen have faith that he was going to win? I don't know. But it seems to me like there was a bit of a fear there. A bit of like he got himself like maybe too amped up. And it's hard not to. It's the Olympic final, right? I don't blame him. He's a great runner. But he maybe made a tactical error that he couldn't recover from, and it cost him the medal. Why would he make the tactical error? He's not dumb. He's so fit. But perhaps, I haven't talked to him about this, perhaps his emotions overrode what his logical mind could think, and he just simply made an error. And I don't think that error in tactics came from a place of love and joy and expansion and gratitude. It probably came from a need to win, a fear of not winning. That rivalry he had going with Josh Kerr is coming from like a more dense place. Cole Hawker, he wasn't participating in any of that drama leading up to the Olympics. I'm not surprised that he won because he was coming at it from a place of like relaxed power. Whereas Kerr and Ingebrigtsen, although maybe superior runners, they were coming at it, especially Ingebrigtsen was coming at it from a place of like aggression and dominance. And cool, like I'm not going to judge either one. I'm just saying like, look at the difference between what happened. Cole Hawker, power. Ingebrigtsen, force. And that's power versus force. And there's a big difference.
Yeah. So what I understand from this is you become the person you want to be, right? Like you start enacting it, and you, if you want to be the champion, you act like a champion, which really works for you with all the hard work and all the strategy and all the grunt that you had to do for the previous, say, 16 to 18 weeks that you had to get into. Now, I read a story about goal setting in your book, which is of Billy Miles cutting 2 minutes in his 10K, right? And I mean 10K for a competitive athlete at an elite level is highly difficult. And if they can do it, how can recreational runners set and pursue goals that seem nearly impossible?
Well, you get yourself into a problem. If you think it's nearly impossible, it's nearly impossible. You're not likely to do it. It's nearly impossible. you're not going to do something that you believe is impossible or nearly impossible. But Billy Mills didn't believe that that was impossible. He knew it was inevitable. And his mindset was really strong. I've met him a couple of times. And you can watch his video just on YouTube. You can watch him break this down in an interview. But what he said was that if you watch that race, ooh, I got goosebumps again. If we skip ahead to the end of the race, with about 150 meters to go, he got pushed out into lane 4, I think it was, by Mohamed Gamoudi. Now he's got extra distance to run, and he's in 4th place, and he's got 150 meters to go, and he's in 4th place. And when he was coming down the home stretch with about 100 meters to go, he was in 4th, moving up into 3rd. But he says, his mind said, I won, I won, I won. Not, I'm going to win, not, I'm going to pass these people. He said, I won, but I'm still in 4th place. So nothing, for someone who's made a absolute decision, nothing can rob you of that. Otherwise, it's not a decision. If your decision can waver so easily, it wasn't a real decision. It's a hope. It's a goal. But when you decide, which is not easy to do, I'm not saying everybody just go decide. It's not necessarily easy to really decide. But if you do, then no matter what the evidence is, you're unwavering on your decision. So Billy Mills, he's in 4th place, but he says, I won. Well, he didn't win. He's in 4th place. But he knew that he won. And then, of course, he won because he didn't waver on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say you win versus you're going to win, it is enacting that expression or emotion, and it just is easy to be in that flow, right? Like you are in the flow that you will do it.
Hold on. No, there's a big difference between I will do it and it's done. They're polar opposite. They're not the same at all. Someone who doesn't have any money and they say, I will be a millionaire. What they're saying subconsciously is that I am not a millionaire. I will be in the future, but I am not. Doesn't work. It's I am a millionaire. But my bank account, but I have the bills. Wait a second. You let nothing shake you from that at all. Now, there's a gestation period in the universe. If you want anything, if you want to have a baby, well, you got to wait at least 9 months. I mean, I guess you could adopt or something, but really, you need to wait at least, there's a gestation period. And that gestation period is not up to you. It's up to you have to show up and you have to take action. But the gestation period, it comes back to everything's working out for you. It will come when it's supposed to come. Your job is to know what you want and take the action towards it. That's it. But you have to know what you want and become it. So it's not about wanting something. It's about being the person who naturally has it. Let me say that one more time because that's really important. It's not about if you want anything in your running, it's not about the pursuit of getting the thing you don't have, because then you're acknowledging to yourself and your subconscious that you don't have it. And guess what? You get more of what you are, what you think. So if you don't have it, you're going to continue not to have it. So the job is to become the person who naturally has the thing that you want. And then by definition, it's easy to get the thing that you want. Jim Ryan set a world record in the mile, and after running that race, he said, it's the easiest race I ever ran. Well, that's interesting. He just ran faster than any human being ever had over a tough distance. Easiest run he ever ran? Because it wasn't about the pain that we need. So it's not about like pushing through and being like, I'm going to grit and bite down on this pain. It's about being, like you said, it's about being in alignment, knowing who you are and becoming that person who naturally has it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So Andrew, I want to now talk about being in flow because I've read it. I mean, I've gone through your book and it talks about when you are reaching a state of flow, it requires a perfect balance of mental fortitude, practice, and ability to accept the boredom, right? So can you explain that and how we can achieve it?
Nope. You can't explain flow. Flow is a state that we like to think we can biohack and like get into. Good luck. Flow is the product of consistently showing up and how you condition yourself. And then the flow will be there or it will not. You've probably experienced, you and your listeners, have you not experienced a race where you're completely in the flow? Regardless of if you're going to PR or not, you're just like present to the moment and you've tapped into your body and you're executing really well and you're just there. You've probably had times when you're in a race, even a race where you've run a PR, where sometime in the middle of the race, you're thinking about what's for dinner or the person behind you, and you're not present. Getting into flow it's not like something we can hack and get into. It's something that you can practice giving yourself the chance to get into, and then let it come when it's going to come. Not with the expectation that you must have it. If you think you have to get into flow in order to win or in order to set a PR, you're kind of pinching yourself off from it because you're putting some pressure on it. Am I in flow or not now? You put pressure, and pressure is the antithesis of flow. It's more of a release. How do you release? You have to release. The only way to really release is to not think that there's still something to do, that it's already done. A fighter who's like really present to the moment is not thinking, calculating what his next punch or kick is. They're completely present and relaxed, and they simply respond because they've conditioned and trained their body to know exactly what to do, and they have full faith that they know what to do. It's down in there. It's conditioned because they did the work. So your job is to show up and do the training and then completely release. And that's the only way to get into flow. If you're trying to control, you're not in flow by definition.
Yeah, and it also helps to remain calm. When you're in the flow, you are in the present, and when you're in the present, you're not worried about what will happen or what happened, right? You're just there, taking a step after step. And I have experienced this because a song flashing through my head, or what's there for dinner, as you mentioned, right? Like there are times when I'm training, and in the second rep I'll be like, oh, but did I make breakfast? Did I plan my breakfast? And I have to remind myself, Aditi, just take a step forward. That will happen. And that's when I consciously bring myself back to the present moment is when things get easy. And I met this athlete at the Tata Mumbai Marathon, and she was running, we met before the race at our shakeout run, and she was going through few niggles, right? So 2 weeks before the race, she had fallen and she had bruises. And I could see the bruises because they were evidently there. And she again wanted to get her personal best. And I said that, okay, let's see, you've trained, I've seen your training, you've done great, we wished each other. And at the end of the race, she aced the race. Like, she was a age category winner and also the overall winner, right? Again, I meet her in Delhi, and we just wish each other, and she's already BQ'd, right? So she didn't have to actually come here, but she had a PR by 6 minutes, right? And in a span of 5 weeks, PR by 6 minutes is great. And I do feel that all these things that we are talking is something that she's consciously, subconsciously bringing to herself. Whereas I had another friend of mine who trained again in the similar fashion, and she was hitting her paces and she faltered, right? Mm-hmm. She faltered as in she was not able to, it wasn't the best race of her the season. So I'm talking about two athletes who have similar commitment, similar fortitude, everything. One is going and doing a 6 minutes PB, whereas other one didn't have the best timing. Why do we see these behaviors, and what is it that can be done to improve?
Sure.
For the mindset.
So I can't speak directly to those people because I don't know what they were focused on and what they were thinking and what they were feeling, but I can still give you the answer. It comes down to what you focus on, and the best way to tell this is with a story. So a little story for you. I have a runner who I adore. She's been with me. She's 65 years old, and I've been coaching her for about 5 years. It was about 2 years ago. She was running a marathon, and she believed she could set a PR, and she was on track for it. But part of the course went through a tunnel. And in the tunnel, it was kind of dark. And there was something in the road, a stick or something like that. And she tripped in the tunnel, and she fell down, and she bashed her knee onto the asphalt. And it got bloody, it got swollen. She had to sit there for, 30 seconds, a minute and a half, something like that, and just kind of like, ooh, that hurt, and then get walking and then get running again. And guess what? She missed her PR by about a minute. So the first thought was, how unlucky. Shit. Had that not happened, I would have get this PR. And it's like the first knee-jerk reaction is, oh, I'm a victim. But then She was walking over to the athlete recovery area. You know, they give you your space blanket and some drinks. And there was a nice park. She lives in San Diego. She went over to a tree. She was walking towards a tree. It was kind of in the distance, like 50 meters away. And as she's walking towards that tree, not a branch, but a limb from that tree fell down and crashed right underneath the tree. She saw it happen. And that's where she was going. So, thank God that she fell and smashed her knee. Because if she didn't, she would have got what she thought she wanted, but not what she really wanted. She would have got that PR. And then she would have been severely injured, maybe killed, by a falling limb on a tree that falls on her head. So, everything's always working out for you, even if you don't see the evidence. That's where faith comes in. Everything's always working out. I have faith that that's true. You can take that or leave it. It's very useful to believe that. But I love that story because it's proof. She saw. If she got what she thought she wanted, she'd be hurt or dead or at least severely scratched up. It wouldn't have been a good day. But it didn't happen. So the way out of this is to focus on gratitude. Now you can focus on, there's 3 emotions that are very high level. They are gratitude, love, and joy. Pick whichever one you want. I like gratitude. So if you're in a race and you're missing your splits or it's blowing up, what can you be grateful for? If you run, when you see Kipchoge run, when he gets to the end of his race, he's smiling. He's always smiling with a mile or 2 to go. When the pain is at its most, he's expressing the most joy. Is that a tactic to win or is that who he is? So if you can tap into gratitude, it doesn't stinking matter if you hit the PR or not. Because if you cross that finish line and you feel love, joy, or gratitude, that's what you wanted the PR for anyway. You just think when you get the PR, well, then I'll be grateful that I got the PR. No. Be grateful first and get the PR from that place. And if you are grateful first, you already got the result. It doesn't matter if you get the PR. Maybe you will sometimes, maybe you won't. We can't control if there's a headwind, a tailwind, God forbid. You remember what happened for YouTube? I won't say this word, but you remember what happened I think it was the 2012 Boston, right? The thing went off. There were people who were surely en route to set a PR, who spent all their money to travel over from Tokyo and get on the line and rent the expensive hotels, and they were en route to do it. Then the race is cut off. You can't even finish. And what a disaster it would be if that person was focused on how unlucky they were because they didn't get to run their race. How unlucky you are? You know what just happened at the finish line? Thank goodness you weren't there. Thank goodness your family wasn't there. Can we just be grateful that we were looked after? Can we be grateful that something beautiful can come from this? Can we express love to the victims of what happened there? And if they tap into that, it's not about them. Like Kipchoge, it wasn't about him. It was no human is limited. No person is limited. When it's about something greater than you, and when you're tapping into the emotions that you really want, the race just becomes a formality. It's just the race. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying, I'm like playing with this a little. It doesn't mean the race doesn't matter. You're doing all of this for the race, but the reward is not in the race. If we look at, think of how many tragic lives have been lived that were very successful, like those, only the good die young. Think of like Prefontaine. He died in a car accident, for goodness sake, when he was 24 years old. But maybe that's a beautiful thing. Maybe that was his destiny because he pinched it off when he had done so much and it contributed so much inspiration to the world. And then he got pinched off, his light went out before he was able to set the world record in the 3 mile that he said he was going to do. And it leaves us wondering, what would he have done? And they made 2 movies about him because of that. There's no movies about Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods or, they made a docuseries about it, but there's no movies about it, but there's 2 movies about Prefontaine. Isn't that interesting? So it's about what you focus on. I suggest gratitude is the most potent of those. I'm tempted to share another story on gratitude in running, but for the sake of time, I'll save it for now.
So we are coming close to the end, and I have read your book, and I know that beyond mindset, your book takes an interesting perspective on training. So can you summarize what readers can expect from your training method?
Sure. Let's not make a mistake here that this is all mindset and that's it. Go sit and meditate in a cave. In my book, there are 3 sections. The first section is on mindset. We start with mindset because it's the most important. If you neglecting that, who cares about the rest? But it's a minor section of the book. The majority of the book, more than like 60% of it, is on structuring your training. Because this is a top-down approach, okay? We're going to look at a pyramid. So visualize this in your mind. We have a pyramid with a top, middle, and a bottom. The bottom is your training. The bottom matters. If you don't train, you're not likely to run a sub 4 mile or a sub 2. You're not likely to. Okay, so we do need to train, but not at the expense of level 2 and level 1. Level 2 is your lifestyle. If you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, this is more important than your training. If you really clean up your diet a lot, and this is the main thing that I coach my runners on when they come in, is we do a diet overhaul, baby. And that's how they get an hour improvement in 9 weeks. It's not their training, it's their lifestyle and nutrition. So we got to get that under control. But then most important, nothing else matters if we're not also having it lead you to the life that you want to live that's fulfilling emotionally. So when I talk about training, we do need to make sure we do mindset first, lifestyle. My second book is coming out later this year on nutrition. But the training itself, we want to do a periodized model. So there's lots of great coaches out there, and I didn't make up this model out of thin air. It's based off of the greatest coaches and the greatest athletes who have ever lived. But essentially what you want to do is you want to define, number one, mindset, emotion. You want to define what it is you want and when you want it. Now you want to set a world record next week in the 800 meters. You can choose whatever you want. But if you're going to choose something that is big goal that's very soon, then we have to take much bigger action than if it's a smaller goal a year or two from now. How do we set up your training? We do it in 3 phases. We do base, support, specific. Base training is the most important, and it's where most runners neglect to train. Base training is getting your foundation as high as we can, and it's not just a foundation of easy running. That's just easy running. It's not base training. Base training is a foundation of aerobic development, musculoskeletal integrity. That's going to come from your volume, your long runs, your frequency of running, but it's also neuromuscular efficiency and strength and power. And that's going to come from speed. It's going to come from strides and hill sprints. Strides and hill sprints are very short. These aren't intervals or tempo runs. So in base training, we don't do intervals or tempo runs because of the opportunity cost. It's not that a tempo run is bad for you, but a 3-mile hard tempo run, you could have done 10 miles easy plus 25 strides. Which one is better? The tempo run's better if you're racing 2 weeks from now, but the higher mileage with the strides is better if you're racing 6 to 12 months from now. And so we build a foundation. We do that as long as we can, at least 6 weeks. That is a very short period of time, but it's at least 6 weeks. We want to go 6 to 9 months. Then we do support training and specific training, each of which are about 6 weeks if we have the time. Support training is starting to peak your fitness through more traditional speed and tempo runs and long runs. Most runners are running perpetually in a support phase. So you're probably familiar with this. This would be like your 400-meter intervals, your 40-minute tempo runs, etc. So we start to peak you, but we're deliberately neglecting race pace running. Be it for a marathon or a 5K, let's just say a marathon, you're not doing marathon pace running yet. You're running faster than intervals, and you're running slower than, but long. And then we go into your sharpening phase, which is specific phase. That's your final 6 weeks of preparation. And that's when we do the big gut-busting workouts. And this is the shiny thing that everybody wants to do. They want to do like the big workouts, but good luck doing an 18-mile marathon pace run if you haven't yet built the foundation and the support. So we do it in that order. The book breaks it down for you, two chapters on base training, and then a giant chapter on each of those, how to set them up, how to calculate your paces, what kind of workouts to do. But that's how we do it. We build a foundation, and only when that foundation is robust do we sharpen it and we peak. And then after your peak, you're going to rest, you're going to come back and do it again. But let's make no mistake that base training is where it's all at. And most of my runners set PRs just off of base training, because that's how powerful base training is if you do it right and if you do it long enough. And we couple it with mindset and nutrition and lifestyle.
Got it. So we are coming to the close of today's episode, but I want to ask you, how can our listeners reach out to you, and where can they get your book?
Sure. The book is available on Amazon. You can get it print or Kindle. It's even translated to German now. You can get it on audiobook on Audible as well. Those are like the cheapest, easiest ways to just get the book. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Run Elite. I publish there every 2 weeks, and I have been for years now. There's a lot of information on there. You can learn a lot, and it's completely free. So those are great places to start. If you are watching my YouTube and you go to the links at the bottom in the description, you'll see a link that gives you a free class, completely free. I don't want anything from you. You can't give me money. You can't book a call with me. It's just free. It's a masterclass on how to structure your training in the way that we've talked about here, completely free. Now, if you want coaching, it's not so traditional that you just reach out to me and ask for coaching. I only take certain kinds of runners. There's an interview process for this. If you want to start that process, you should not. You should first get familiar with my material to make sure that it resonates with you. If it resonates with you, you can apply for coaching, and you go to andrewsnowcoaching.com/run. If you do that, there is an application there. We currently have a waiting list, but we read through the applications and we'll have a conversation with you over email back and forth. And if we're a good fit, we get on a call together and we spend about an hour on the call together. And only after all of that do we talk about if we're a good fit. So I do not offer coaching that you can just purchase. I suggest you just do the free stuff, get the book, look at YouTube, watch the free class. If that all resonates with you, reach out to me and I'll be happy to have a conversation with you.
All right, then. I hope our listeners found this useful. And for Andrew, all the best for your upcoming race and the upcoming season.
Thank you so much.
I would like to thank all our listeners, and if you like this episode and would like to know more on the world of running, please subscribe to our channel. And if you know of someone who is starting their journey into fitness and running, do share our podcast link with them. I would like to thank my friend Arvind for editing, sound recording, and taking care of the post-production for this podcast. If you have any suggestions on improving the content of the show or topics you would like us to cover, please share it by emailing us at connect@geeksonfeet.com. Or you can also reach us through Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.